Abusheni Mbagazo. Um, Thanks for tuning in. Always appreciate your swinging by this house or place. All right. So I want to, and I've been looking forward to doing this for some time now. um, I want to touch on something that's, or a topic rather, that's rather vast, complex, some might say, okay? And that is of leadership. But maybe let me actually position it this way with a statement. So, partnership is the new leadership. Load it, chew on that a bit. Partnership is the new leadership. Now, new that denotes that actually there was something before the proposed subject or topic right now, right? So let's take a few steps back. If you think about the concept of how did organizations manage or actually pull everything, all resources together, that lands you right in the center of management. So management was that one capability that many organizations identified as the one factor that actually brings everything together, from people to resources to, you know, around actually rally around that purpose or the purpose of that particular structure and organization. So they spent a lot of time, energy building that capability and capacity, right? So that the purpose or the drive and goal and vision for the organization comes to pass. And it was okay, and still is to a large extent actually, the driver for actually success. That quickly then morphed into leadership, you know, and leadership did not necessarily replace management, but it sort of lifted the lid just a little bit without actually doing so as well, or without, whilst it was bringing also down. Let me explain what I mean by that. If you think about leadership, leadership is the best definition that I can think of. It's that leadership is influence, at least according to Maxwell and a few other players in that space, right? Leadership is influence, and you cannot influence remotely, for lack of a better word. And what I mean by that is that it's a person to person type thing. It's a relationship, you know. Influence only happens when there's trust, as an example. And trust is something that you develop in a relationship context. You know, it's not a command, do as I say type of thing. It's more, you know, this needs to be done. Where are you? What are you thinking of? How can we get around doing it? So that's leadership, right? In a very simplified form, of course. There's, again, many ins and outs into what actually it's all about and what makes it successful. And then now we move to where we are now, which is exactly what I mentioned when we opened, that partnership then is the new leadership. Again, partnership is not necessarily replacing leadership. It's actually just, I guess, going deeper into it, in my opinion. Because if you think about, you know, your own journey and successes that you have enjoyed in that journey, this is true for me in any case, that any success that I can actually think of, there were people that I can think of who were part of that success. They might have inspired it, you know, they might have contributed to it, sponsored it, supported it. So maybe let's talk about roles. So partners can be customers, you know, people who support that particular success or dream. It can be suppliers, you know, it can be friends or family, support structures. It can be mentors, you know, it can come from anywhere. Partners, people who are actually with you along the journey. And that's quite powerful, because it means if successes actually come because of partners, it means we need to raise the level and be more intentional about partnerships. Really, if you can't do anything on your own, then it means you need to be actively then seeking partners on any dream or venture that you are undertaking. And we do that, but not as deliberate as we would like to. At least that's true in my case. And whilst doing that, on the other hand, to be exactly that to other people as well, because all of us have resources that we, you know, have exposure to, whether it's experience or a capability or expertise that you might have built along the way and after some time of doing what you've been doing, right? So you've got something to offer. I guess that's what I'm trying to say about that. So look for opportunities to partner with someone as a form of helping or giving to them, but also look for opportunities to identify partners with whatever you're busy with. And most of the time, it's not so much actually about money. Don't get fixated on that, because that's actually not what I'm talking about. That's actually, in my opinion, the basic level of partnership. It's beyond that. It's bigger than that. Hence, it's at a leadership level, right? Partnership is the new leadership. And maybe to learn this a little bit better is in the biblical context, I think immediately of Jonathan. Jonathan was a prince, next in line of throne, prince, right? Who then identified someone who was more suited, more anointed in the context of spirituality, someone who was more equipped to actually take that throne and take it to the next level. Because it's not actually about the throne itself, it was about the work of the throne. Again, in this context, driving the nation of Israel further and further, higher and higher, according to the nation's interest, number one, and the interest of God in that scenario. So Jonathan then identified David and went into partnership or covenant with that person to say, look, you've got the gift, you've got the goods, I honor what is inside of you. Let's go ahead and do this. This is someone who practically had the throne in his hands. A real partner. Some might even say a real leader, to actually say it in a more understandable terminology. He was effectively the king who took his throne and gave it to someone else. Now, I'm not necessarily saying you need to take your dream or your position and give it to someone else. No. I'm saying it should be about what are we trying to achieve and who's best suited to do it, if in the team context now, and let that person then go to the fore. But in a more deeper context, it's about saying, okay, cool. I see person A. What is it that person A is doing? How can I actually support and help them in that particular context? Because in doing that, you're not only becoming a partner, but actually a leader. I'm a hip-hop head. Here's one last example. I'm a hip-hop head, and Mzansi hip-hop specifically, I quickly think of a Pro Kid in one of the skits, on Heads and Tails now, that Heads and Tails album. There's a skit where he talks about going to the studio. He's on a taxi, he's going to the studio to record the album. Now, think about the guy that gave him the money, because at the time he did not have much, right? That gave him the money with Taki Taxi to go and actually record the album. Who do you think Pro Kid will think of when that album became a success? Or thought of, sorry, in this case. You know what I mean? That's why I guess in the music industry, people who actually then thank people, a list of people in the award, they recognize partners, people who help them with this particular process. In books, for instance, acknowledgements, that's people acknowledging the partners who help them, whether it's the team around them, their family, etc., etc. Long story short, here's what I'm saying and the reason for this. I've said all of that to say this one thing. Actually, two things. One, be vigilant and have your eyes open to identify partners in your journey and walk. They are out there. They are always willing to help without even actually requesting any money. Not that you should not pay people for doing what they need to do. Okay. Two, it's that really just become that to other people. Each one, teach one. I am my brother's keeper. All those cliches are true, and all of them emphasize exactly this. Partnership is the new leadership. For more on this, Ty Bennett actually wrote a whole book on the same subject. So he's an author and a motivational speaker. So check it out. You might find interesting stuff there as well for yourself. If any of this stood out, you found value in anything that actually I've said today, please drop a line or two. I do appreciate comments, and I really promise to read and engage in that sense. But also like, follow, subscribe, do all those kind of things, man, because really this community can only grow if you want it to grow. And why would you want it to grow? Only if you get value. If you don't get value, then don't do any of those things, right? But if you do get value, don't sit back and say I got value. make sure that that value keeps coming. And I'm more than willing as a custodian to do this because that's how I get my oxygen personally. So yeah, let's partner together and get this ball rolling, man. Peace. Stay well. Cheers.